Welcome to the Desert Living Podcast, where we discuss ways to make living in the desert better, from professionals that can cut your costs to experts in all aspects of desert living. I am Rob Madden, Phoenix's green home broker and the designated broker with Green Leaf Realty in Phoenix, Arizona, located in the heart of the Sonoran Desert. This is episode 102, and in this episode, we interviewed Ulysses Mejia from SunPower by Surefire Solar, who specializes in solar systems in the Phoenix metro area. As always, our podcast recording can be found online at phoenixecobroker.com. Here's the interview from February 21st, 2020. This is Rob Madden. I am designated broker with Green Leaf Realty, and today I have Ulysses Mejia with SunPower by Surefire Solar. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So tell me a little bit about yourself, Ulysses. What's your background?
Well, my background, Rob, is sales. I've been doing sales for about 12, 13 years, and I started off selling stuff that I didn't really care for, and I was pretty good at it, but not caring for it led me to asking myself, what do I want to do? How can I help people and be fulfilled? And that led me to the renewables industry, and specifically solar.
Okay.
So I've been doing solar for almost 7 years now. Started off working for Solar City in Tucson. Then it got bought over by Tesla, and then I went to be a solar broker, and now I work for SunPower Direct.
So tell me, why SunPower?
SunPower, like I said, I've been doing this for a while. I've almost 7 years. I have hundreds of customers, and I've seen how this all works, and I'm a huge believer in the cause of solar and what it does, more than just the return on investment and that. I'm a greenie. I'm a tree hugger. So I'm all about saving the planet.
I can appreciate that aspect of it.
Yeah, and so I love explaining, hey, these are all the benefits. You get solar, you get to live better and save money and add value to your home. But real benefit is that we're helping the planet. We're helping future generations. We're doing something in a better way.
Okay.
And so whatever can push that whole movement, that's what I'm for. And I noticed that solar with maybe not the best training for the salespeople, or solar companies with not the best training, or solar companies with not the best service, was actually hurting the market. It was actually stopping solar from growing as fast as it could.
You mean to say solar had a bad reputation in some segments?
Right.
I'm only kidding, because we've all seen the rumors and the naysayers out there. But
yeah, it's crazy out here in Arizona. You get a lot of these snowbirds that are like, why doesn't every house have solar? We get so much sun out here,
It's only sunny, over 300 days out of the year. I can't imagine why we wouldn't have that as a major source of electricity. But
exactly. And when you kind of pull back the lens and see that, hey, we do have a lot of sun and nobody's against solar, but why is this particular market not really pro-solar? There's not a lot of good education. I might even go as far as to say there's propaganda against solar in this marketplace. Yeah. And what you find, like I said, when you kind of peel the lens back, is that not every market is the way that Arizona is. You got other markets like California, New York, New Jersey, and other places that are very green, very pro-solar, a lot of rebates, incentives, and a lot of education that goes a long way. And you don't hear all the bad stories or all the bad rumors about solar, and that's how I feel like it started here. It started really good. There'd be lines of people just wanting to get solar once the Zero Down program started, and then somewhere along the way, solar grew so fast, and I think some of these companies, I don't want to say they got greedy, but they grew too fast, and the consumer ended up paying for it.
Well, we could sit here and talk all day about all the bad things that we've heard and seen, and some of the things that have happened in the solar industry. But for me, I see a much more positive industry now than we did back in the wild West days when solar was first introduced. But one of the things that we were talking about offline is where we're seeing solar headed. Initially, when solar first came out, that zero down escalator clause solar lease was prevalent, because you could literally have savings from day one with no money down. But we're not seeing that as much. Is that correct? Or we're seeing kind of more of a transition. Is it into loans, or are we seeing just people buying it outright, or what do you see in your line?
Yeah, I absolutely see the same thing. When I first started, I was trained, hey, this is the better, easier way to go. And the people in the company that are selling the most and winning the trips, they're offering leases. This is a simpler way to go about things. People don't have to get into debt or worry about interest. And somewhere along the way, that switched. And now more people are interested in the marketplace, and we're just serving that marketplace as far as ownership. People see that, hey, leasing is cool, but if I could own it for about the same cost, zero down, save the same money, I'd rather own it than lease it. And so personally, I'm working a lot more with loans and leases these days.
Well, and I could now with ownership though versus leases. I know leases in the past had their warranties. They had production guarantees. They had all these things built into that where the homeowner had reassurances that if there was a malfunction, they're covered. Do we still see that same kind of warranty with an ownership type loan, or is it just you're on your own, good luck?
Yeah, that's a great question. And a lot of my answers are it depends, because it's not as black and white. There's different types of solar loans. There's different solar companies. There's different equipment and packages.
Let's talk about what you guys sell, because you're a SunPower authorized dealer. You use SunPower to do the installations,
right,
from what we've talked about. So what makes SunPower different than everybody else, to where that homeowner would have that reassurance?
Right. Well, SunPower is very different than everybody else. So they've been around the longest. Big public company. They're international. They operate in business and residential in like 30-some states. And so with them, because they manufacture their own equipment, they're one of the only companies that manufactures, sells, and installs their equipment. You're not dealing with a combination of different brands and then one subcontractor installing it. Therefore, the warranties are more complicated when you do that, because you're dealing with one manufacturer. You get one warranty, and that warranty covers everything, including production. So when you're talking about SunPower, lease or loan, you get a full 25-year coverage no matter which way you go.
And 25 years is still longer than most panels out there. I mean, you're looking at most panels, what, a 20-year type warranty?
So most panels have a manufacturer's warranty of about 10 to 12 years, right? That's against defects. They have what's called a production warranty, which means it's going to be producing at a certain rate for 20 years or so. And so most panels, we call it conventional solar, they say, hey, in 20 years, this panel will be at least 80% efficient in 20 years. So
you're saying after 20 years, it loses 20% of its ability to produce electricity.
Exactly. Okay. That's conventional solar. Whereas SunPower takes it a step further, and they say, hey, in 25 years, you're not going to lose 20%. The most you'll lose is 8%. So we're guaranteeing that in 25 years, your system will still be, worst case scenario, 92% as efficient as it was from day one.
Now, how can they do that? I mean, that seems so counterintuitive when everybody else out there is saying after 20 years, 20% reduction. SunPower is saying 25 years, 8% reduction.
Right.
What's the difference?
And just to add on to that, like I said, most panels 10 to 12-year manufacturer's warranty. SunPower 25-year manufacturer warranty on the panels against defects. So not just the power, against any defect in the panel for 25 years versus 10 or 12. So it's more than double. The reason why is SunPower has been doing only solar for so long, almost 35 years now, that they've perfected it, and they have over 1,000 patents in their technology. It's called Maxion technology. It's just a fancy word. But the way that they manufacture the cells themselves is completely different than what everybody else does. It's a little more expensive. It's a little more complicated. But what you end up with, the final result, is a much sturdier, long-lasting, more durable, more efficient solar cell. And when you combine that with other technologies, that's why you can warrant it.
Well, and you were saying, too, earlier that these cells not only last longer, but they produce more for the given square footage.
Right.
So you have a higher efficiency, even in lower lights or partial shading, God forbid.
Right.
That you get more out of per square foot out of a SunPower panel than you do than a lot of competitors out there.
Absolutely, yeah. We have different size panels and different efficiency, but I would say it usually takes an average of 26 conventional panels to equal what 18 of our panels would do. But even if you have enough space for those 26 versus the 18, the 26 in 20 years are going to be producing a lot less power than what those 18 will be producing in 20 years. So over time, not only do you need less of our panels, they'll be working a lot better. And so that tends to add more value to the system.
Now, who is a good candidate for solar?
I would say, so solar is not for everybody. You know, when I sit down with the homeowner, I tell them we're not really talking about solar. What we're really talking about is electricity, and you're buying this already. So if you can find a better way to buy electricity, why not? You know, if you can find gas cheaper, food cheaper, if it's the same food, why not get the cheaper? Especially if it's better, like organic food. If it was cheaper than not organic food, why wouldn't you get the organic, right?
Organic electricity.
Yeah.
Never thought of it that way, but I like that.
I see. That's how I say it. And so we're all buying electricity, but just because you buy electricity and you want to buy it cheaper doesn't mean you're the best candidate for solar. I would say a good candidate is somebody who's going to stay in that house for at least a couple of years. The better candidate is the longer you're going to own that home, the more beneficial it is to look into solar. You might not live in that house yourself. You might rent it out to somebody or Airbnb it. But if you're going to own that house, you want the house to be increasing in value. And solar does that. It's a long-term investment.
That's if you own it instead of leasing it, correct?
I'm saying if you own the home.
No, but when you put solar on, though, to get that additional value, at least in the property value, ownership versus leasing.
Yeah, in actual value, appraised value, in leasing, and to me, there's still some, intrinsic value that comes with it because you get other things. You lock in a lower rate, even though you don't own the system, it doesn't add value to your house. You're locking in a lower rate, and that rate stays lower and locked in versus the utility rates that go up. Not only that, you get certain lifestyle benefits. You're not subject to this whole peak and off-peak lifestyle that a lot of people, including me, have to sometimes go by and wait till it's Saturday to wash and that kind of thing to save money. But the other big thing that a lot of people don't know anything about, and I love to educate realtors on this because it's such a big value, is the value of grandfathering. So if you go solar, whether you buy it or you lease it, you signed a deal with your utility on how they're going to buy power back from you, and that deal stays grandfathered with the meter. So even if you sell the house, right, that house is grandfathered into a plan that you can't get no more. Even if you were to buy a brand new house with no solar and put solar, now you're on a different plan with the utility that works different. And so knowing that you're grandfathered into a better plan has some value to it. You're getting something you can't no longer get. And a lot of people don't even know about this.
You're locking in your rate from future increases, is what you're saying.
You're locking in the rate through your solar deal, but through the deal you made with your utility, you're actually locking in almost a certain policy with them.
And kind of what you're referencing are the people, 3-4 years ago that locked in with APS, for example, at the lower rates we had back then versus what they're charging now.
What I'm really talking about is the buyback rates from the utility.
Okay.
So the utility.
Let's talk about buyback rates because I think a lot of people don't.
Yeah, they don't know anything.
A lot of people understand net metering, but net metering has gone away. So now APS offering. We'll kind of pick on APS because that seems to be where most of the market is. But let's talk about buyback rates because we're seeing that number decrease. Each year with APS.
Exactly. So it started in 2017. September 1st, 2017 is officially when net metering ended, which means you give them 1 kilowatt hour during the day with your solar, and they give you 1 kilowatt hour at night. So it was a 1-to-1 credit. After that date, APS said, hey, we're just going to buy power from you and add that credit to your bill. And that buyback rate has been decreasing. So it used to be 13 cents. And then the year after, 2018, went down to 12 cents. And then last year went down to 11 cents. Right now we're at 10.5 cents. So that deal that you signed with the utility, if say you signed in 2017 for 13 cents, you're grandfathered into 13 cents now. So every time you sell power to APS, it's always going to be at 13 cents. Versus if you buy solar now you got to sell it at 10.5 cents.
So you're saying there's a cost to waiting to go solar?
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly. And it's kind of counterintuitive because so many people think, well, I'm going to wait till the technology gets better. I'm going to wait till the price drops like everything else.
But where's the benefit for buyback? I mean, are a lot of people oversizing their systems to where they're overproducing and APS has to buy back that excess?
Ooh, that's a really good point. I like it. So if you understand how this works, back in the day with net metering, even though it was a better buyback rate, it was a better deal, you never wanted to put a system too big because they didn't buy that power from you at the end of the year. So you put in a system that was just big enough for you. Not too big, not too small. Now with the new program, it's called net billing. So net metering has gone away. Now we have net billing. With net billing, even though the buyback rate is decreasing, going down every year, you can now oversize your system to where you actually get money back from the utility. So if you do it in the correct way, it's not for everybody, but if you understand and you're going to keep your house and you want to use more power, you would want to oversize that system. So now you're not just not paying an APS bill, you're actually getting a check back from APS because they're buying this power from you at a pretty decent rate.
Okay.
So the sizing of the system it depends on the homeowner, right? What they're going to do, how their house is going to increase or decrease as far as their usage, how long they're going to be there. You don't always want to oversize the system, especially if you plan on selling that home and maybe the future buyer doesn't need as much power.
Are you seeing homeowners out there able to find whether it's a lease or a loan product out there that's cheaper than that 10.5 cents that APS is buying it back to where there's a positive cash flow? So let's say, I mean, and what I mean by that is, so let's say on my loan, mm-hmm. I'm paying 9 cents a kilowatt hour, mm-hmm. roughly. Mm-hmm. But I don't use all of that. Mm-hmm. And so APS is paying me back at 10.5 cents. I got a 1.5 cent profit, if you will.
Right.
With that. I mean, do you see a lot of that in the marketplace, or is that a strategy you see some homeowners going after, or is that just kind of a...
Yeah, and it's usually for the people that are, kind of my personality type that like spreadsheets and numbers and calculating things. So that's me, right?
That's me as well. That's why I ask.
And a lot of my customers are like that, where they, they monitor their usage, they know the times, they know the rates, and so they're able to manipulate their usage and their solar to get maximum benefit out of it. You got to be a little bit of a nerd to do that, but you can do it. But because the way that the utility rates work, as far as 3 to 8 is your peak time, right? And the way the sun works is that sometimes there's sun out from 3 to 8, and other times of the year, by 6 o'clock, it's already dark and your solar's not producing. So you got to manipulate your system a little bit to maximize the return or the profit. But absolutely, you can do that, especially if you get solar at a really good price.
Now, let's go back to leases and loans a little bit, because, mm-hmm. I mean, obviously we were saying earlier, you saw with the advent of solar here in the Phoenix area, everybody was jumping on board either with cash mm-hmm. out of pocket,
right,
or because you were getting $3 a watt from mm-hmm. APS back in the day,
right,
or they were leasing it with no money out of pocket. Mm-hmm. I mean, either you had the $30,000 to put down, mm-hmm. or you had no money down. It was one of two people.
Absolutely, yeah.
And obviously, we saw everybody going towards leases
mm-hmm.
back then. But that's shifting, though. Isn't that accurate? I mean, do you see more people going with loans versus leases?
I see more people going with loans now because the loan products that are out there are easier to understand. It seems like banks have tailored specific products. We call them solar loans. And they're very easy to qualify for, number one. Just if you can qualify for a lease, you can qualify for a solar loan.
Now, is this a loan that they're putting against the house, or is it more of a personal line of credit, like a personal loan?
It doesn't put a lien on your home or anything like that. So it's more like a line of credit. And it's basically, it doesn't, how should I say this? It's very similar warranty-wise to a lease. The only difference here is that it has interest, right? So you can pay this loan whenever you want. It adds value to your house.
Is there prepayment penalties with these?
There's no prepayment penalties. And the biggest thing with the loan is that you can transfer these loans or you can pay it off at the sale of the home. So that was one of the big things that pushed leases is, well, Ulysses, if I'm going to sell this house in 5 years, am I going to have to pay off this loan to sell the house? And am I going to recuperate my costs? It made it seem more risky than a lease where, well, I could just transfer this payment over, just sign this document, transfer this payment, and They don't have to assume a loan. I don't have to tack on any, additional price tag to my house to recuperate anything. Now the loans operate very similar to the lease, where you can transfer it or you can pay it off. There's no prepayment penalties. Basically, the risk has come down, as well as the rates for a loan and the qualification.
And what are we looking at rate-wise for we're talking first quarter 2020. Where are rates right now? What kind of ranges are people seeing depending on credit scores and some of the other variables that they look at?
Right, and that was the thing. The rates and the loans, they just didn't look very attractive back in the day. A lot of it is, like you said, Rob, you had to go get your own financing, either have cash or get your own financing and get some type of home improvement loan or something like that.
Where do you see rates right now for?
Somewhere between 3.5. Sometimes you can get to 2.99. You got good credit, and depending on the term and the vehicle, all the way up to 5.5 is usually what I've seen, which is great. I mean,
there's different variables for different buyers that come into play, obviously, which is just like buying a house where you may qualify for this rate or you may qualify for that rate depending on the program on the borrower themselves.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
How hard is it? And I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you this question. What are you seeing out there? How difficult is it for somebody to transfer the loan from one homeowner to the new homeowner?
What I'm finding is that when you read the actual solar agreement, it's very simple. Hey, if they qualify for the home, they should qualify for this solar. What I'm finding is that either the realtor or the lender is sometimes making it harder because they don't understand the rules or how to communicate with these solar companies. They might not even know the phone number to call this particular company to get to their transfer department and just say, hey, this is what I need. It's very simple. They make it a lot harder, and sometimes it frustrates them, and it becomes more complicated than it is. From what I understand, people like yourself that have a lot of experience, they know who to call and what to say, and it's a simple process.
The thing that I like about the loans the best, I mean, for me, the one big standout between loans and leases is that I, as the homeowner, get to keep that tax credit at the end of the year if I do the loan versus giving it away to the solar lease company if I take out the lease.
Right.
To me, that's huge because you're talking thousands of dollars extra in my pocket.
Right. And we were talking earlier about, leases and loans and which ones are more prevalent in the marketplace now. And I would only offer a loan to somebody who absolutely wants to go solar but does not have any taxable income. That person would not be able to benefit from that tax credit because it's a non-refundable tax credit. So the retired person with no taxable income who wants solar, they wouldn't be able to monetize that tax credit. So the lease is perfect for them because the solar company will take the tax credit but pass on that savings, right? Versus now the regular homeowner that works and pays a ton of taxes, definitely take the loan. That way you can use that big, huge tax credit. It's literally one of the biggest tax credits you can get right now. And if you're already using power, why not shave off a big chunk of this tax liability that you have to add value to your house?
Absolutely. So let's talk about the future here a little bit. Where do you see solar going in the Phoenix area? I mean, we're at the beginning of 2020. As of the recording of this podcast here, where do you see solar going here in the next year, 5 years? I mean, we talk about, you mentioned earlier some homeowners are hesitant because of future technology. Are we seeing future technology? Are we seeing new trends coming into the marketplace?
So this is a tricky question, and the answer is yes and no. All technology is getting better, but solar is kind of in a field of its own. If you understand the history of solar, back in the 50s when it was first invented, it was like 5% efficient, and then it took 60 years to get to 15, 17, 18% efficiency. It's not getting better like technology that consumes power, phones and TVs and laptops and that kind of stuff. Technology that makes or stores power, like a motor, a generator, solar panel, they haven't really changed a whole lot since they were invented. They've got better, a lot more efficient. Specifically, solar is not advancing in leaves and bounds. It's like super incremental how the technology is advancing. The reason we're seeing solar grow is because it's been subsidized by the government. This tax credit we're talking about, it's forcing 30% or now 26% of the price to come down. So even if technology gets better 30%, which hasn't happened in 50 years, if the subsidy continues to decrease or go away as it's scheduled to, you're going to end up in the same place. Maybe smaller panel, but you pay the same amount of money. And we're not seeing that timeline as far as the subsidy and the technology matching up. The sooner you get solar, the better it is, because it's not getting a whole lot better as far as technology. Now, as far as economies of scale and things just growing and the price coming down, what we're seeing is SRP putting up the state's largest solar batteries with the state's largest solar farms, APS right behind them, buying up land like crazy to put up their own solar farms. Matter of fact, I mean, we can talk about the world as far as this Paris Agreement and everybody wanting to be green, or we could talk about just the states and the federal government mandating every utility for at least certain amount of their power to be renewable. So they have to do it.
Right.
And then you see some states like California that they were mandated for 30% of the power to be renewable by 2030, and they said, hey, we're going to stomp all over that goal and we're going to go 100% renewable by 2050. So you have a lot of these markets that are saying, hey, we don't just want the consumers and homeowners and businesses to go solar, but us, the utilities, it's cheaper and better for us to go solar. So we're also going solar or hydro or wind or combination. But locally, here we're talking about APS. APS is spending, a couple articles came out, I mean, almost $1 billion in their own solar. So it's not like APS doesn't believe in solar. At the end of the day, nobody cares if the power comes from coal or gas or nuclear or solar. We want it cheap, and we don't want to be living peak and off peak is really the thing.
Well, and that's why I like solar.
Right.
'Cause I like it cheap.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I can get it cheaper from solar than I can the utility.
Especially when you get a little bit of sunlight where you live.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit here.
Yeah. And then just to add on to that, because I'm so excited for this, is the combination. This has kind of been the missing piece with solar. We talked about net metering and net billing and the rules with the utility. Has a lot to do, that business model has a lot to do with the adoption of solar in the marketplace.
Right.
And the problem with solar is at night when there's no sun, we still use power, but that solar system does nothing, right? You got the whole city lit up with lights at night.
But I thought they're coming out with new solar panels that collect at night, too.
Moonlight, right? Well, for the most part, solar systems haven't came with batteries because of the price of batteries. But batteries have been going down in price, and there's been a lot of companies coming into it. So now we're getting batteries along with solar. Initially, they're serving as a backup, right? If your power goes out for whatever reason, you got a backup in your house. But real soon, it'll be where you can just store your power and use it whenever you want because the batteries come with the system, right? And that's why APS and SRP and homeowners and hospitals and military and everybody's putting up batteries. Right now, most batteries are being deployed to places with weak grids, Australia, Puerto Rico, Hawaii,
but even
California,
when they had all the wildfires and they had to shut down their grids.
Yeah.
At least I heard the stories of homeowners riding through that because of battery backup.
Exactly. It's like the fire extinguisher. You want it, you don't want to use it, but you want to have it just in case.
Yeah.
The battery's the same thing, but we're finding that just in case is coming up a little more often than not. And so SunPower developed their own battery, right? It's twice as powerful as a Tesla battery, costs the same warranty.
So how many kilowatts we're looking at on that?
There'll be several sizes. There's a couple you can combine batteries for, stack them up
so
for
you
the
can
kilowatts.
Kind of mix and match.
It's like a 9 kilowatt battery.
Okay.
It comes with the controller and everything. Right now, going back to what you just said, SunPower is deploying all their batteries to California because that's where they're needed the most. Around May, April, around there, we should be getting batteries here in the Arizona marketplace. They're still pricey, but that's the missing piece to the technology. When people say, well, where do you see this going in the future? Everybody will have, every roof that gets sunlight will have solar and a battery, and we'll go from a centralized energy production, like a power plant that sends it out to one place, to where everybody's producing power and sharing that power amongst each other and using their own. Because it's a lot more expensive to transfer power than to make power, believe it or not. We lose a lot of power just in the transferring.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And if you look at your bill, not everything is just for the power you bought. A big chunk of it is for the delivery of that power.
Yeah, there's like 30,000 other line items that I'm paying for. And
Right.
one of them says electric generation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Transmission is the one.
Oh,
it's like
geez.
it's like a $10 pizza and a $30 delivery charge, right? So with solar, you get rid of a lot of that transmission cost that the utility accounts for, and that's how they justify our rates and our rate plans and et cetera. So once more people have solar, have batteries, it's going to bring down the cost for everybody, and it's going to make it safer, obviously cleaner, and a lot cheaper. It's already cheaper for the homeowner and the utility to go solar. That's why people are going solar.
Awesome. So if somebody had questions, if they wanted to find out, is solar good for me, how do they get a hold of you?
I would say just give me a call. I like to give a lot of people information over the phone and just give them straight up information so that way they're not really wasting their time. We can set the proper expectations. I don't like the whole, let's make it sound good, let's sit down and then let me, give you way too much information. So the best way to get a hold of me is just my mobile phone. I've had the same mobile phone for a long time.
Okay.
It's 480-514-0496.
One more time, just in case somebody didn't get that.
It's a mobile phone, 480-514-0496, or they could email me directly at ulyssesmejia@surefiresolar.com. It's spelled really funny, the whole thing. Ulysses is not with a Y or double S. It's ULISSESMEJIA. That's my first last name. And then Surefire Solar, SHUR, firesolar.com. So, yeah, Surefire Solar is the name of my team. That's our authorized dealership name through SunPower. And I absolutely love selling SunPower because it's the Bentley or the Ferrari of solar. And I tell people, hey, if you can get a Bentley at a Chevy price, why would you want to pay a Chevy? Why would you get a Chevy for a Bentley price?
Exactly.
So that's why I'm so proud of what I do now. SunPower, not just their technology, but in my point of view, it's the service of the company that really stands out. All technology is cool, but if you don't have somebody to teach you how to use that technology and show you how to use it and add value to your life in that way, the customer service part of it, that's my job. You're only getting half of the value. And so with solar, it's very transactional. Hey, you got solar, we got it installed, we got it turned on, thank you, shake hands, and call us if you need us, versus, hey, let's review your bills, let's re-explain it to you, let's look at your monitoring, let's get involved together and see how we can help the community. And that's really what I'm about.
That's awesome. Well, Ulysses, our time's kind of up right now, but we got to go. But I definitely appreciate you coming by, sitting down and talking with me and sharing all this information. It's great information about solar here in the Valley of Sun. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks, Rob.
You have just listened to our latest Desert Living podcast. I am your host, Rob Madden of Green Leaf Realty and Phoenix's Green Home Broker. You can find out more information about this topic and other desert living topics online at our website at www.phoenixecobroker.com, or feel free to give me a call at any time. I can be reached directly at 480-888-1234. And again, that number is 480-888-1234. Have a great week and enjoy this week in the desert.